where would you suggest is a great place to meet someone?
It's a hard one. I mean, the best recommendation I always give people if they don't want to do apps while still recommending doing the apps at the same time is I'll say to them, go to the kinds of places that you enjoy being, and that will give you the best opportunity to meet the kind of people that also enjoy that. For instance, I also don't like bars and nightclubs. I go see a lot of art. I go to comedy shows. I go to concerts. Continue to do that. However, while there, you have to live in the way that I call living singly. So for instance, if I'm working with you and you were to say to me, I'm not meeting anyone, I'd say to them, well, for instance, when you're at the grocery store, do you have a hat on, sunglasses, and AirPods in? That is not living in the world in a way that allows someone to maybe meet you, right? So I'd say be approachable, approach, right? Be accessible. When you're at that concert or at that movie with your friends, make eye contact with people, right? Like, be open, because people are always looking for signs that this is someone I can approach. People that have good boundaries, right? Because we don't want creepers. But healthy people look for signs of someone who maybe wants to be spoken to. And so I tell people, talk, hold conversations, say hello to people. You have to be approachable.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good advice. So, okay. My next question for you would be about what your thoughts are related to all these things. When people are looking on the news, they're seeing that men are getting in trouble and they're claiming to be sex addicts. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that exists? Do you think that's just an excuse to get them out of some trouble? Why do rehabs exist for these kind of things? Is it not real? Let's get into all that.
Yeah, you're bringing up a very controversial, triggering topic. When I post about this on my social media, I used to have a podcast and radio show. And whenever I would talk about this, it got the most response. So sex addiction in the clinical world is not a legitimate diagnosis. The diagnostic manual does not have a term for it. You cannot bill insurance for it. And all the major psychological organizations have rejected it as a term. So people that are using that label are making up their own definition for who they're using it for. It's case by case. And that's not a good thing in the field of psychology. So having said that, I think people are misusing it for sure. When I looked at Tiger Woods' situation, right, that was someone who was married and was cheating on his wife. He wasn't a sex addict. He was just a jerk that didn't have good ethics. He was a narcissist. He got a lot of attention. A lot of women threw themselves at him, and he had poor boundaries and not enough care for his wife. That's not a sex addiction issue, right? That's like a personality.
Just being an asshole is what you're saying.
That's exactly what I said. He's an asshole, not a sex addict. And these treatment centers, I hope they have a good intention, but I think they do a lot of damage, because a lot of the sex addiction field really walks people into sex phobia and sexual anorexia, and they shame all sexuality. And
Go ahead. I was going to ask how they're actually treating that while you're in there.
Yeah. So what they essentially want to do is they want to remove all sexuality from your life. So if you go in there saying I'm a sex addict, I'm Tiger Woods, they'll say, well, you can't even masturbate. And now, so it's like, okay, well, that's interesting, right? Like now we're just really shaming sexuality in their life at all. And their criteria for sex addiction often steps far outside of out of control sexuality. So for instance, if you're into some really kinky stuff, for a lot of those centers, that's a criteria for sex addiction. Hold on a minute. That's not true. People are very sexually diverse. We have really great research from porn search engines. Whether you like porn or not, it still tells us what billions of people every day are sexually interested in. And guess what? Nobody is Googling married wife in our bed after showering on Sunday in missionary blowing kisses. No one's Googling that. The world is kinky as hell, but we shame that as sex addiction. I have clients come to my office saying, I'm turned on by this creative, diverse thing, so clearly I'm addicted to it. No, you just have to do the work of having confidence in the fact that you have a creative sexuality.
So if you had a couple coming into your office and they're talking to you about how maybe the husband or even the wife is more turned on by porn and they're not necessarily turned on by each other, are you telling them to do some role playing like porn?
Sometimes, but it's more about looking at what is that porn, what need is that porn meeting, and how can we find another way? So for instance, sometimes partners don't want sex with each other because the sex is not worth wanting. So it's really an issue of improving their sex life. Other times, they don't have a healthy relationship. And it's healthy that one of them would rather go to porn than their abusive or verbally abusive partner.
Yeah.
Other times it's because maybe the porn is a more honest expression of what they're turned on by, and they're afraid to share with their partner, this is the kind of sex I'd really like to be having with you or in general. And so it's really about digging deeper.
So what about the notion that somebody who watches too much porn, they can't have regular sex?
Again, I'd want to understand if it's that there's an intimacy issue and that to, approach a partner for dating or sex is beyond what they feel like they have the skills for, and porn is very easy and lazy. And also we live in a culture, sadly, where some people aren't seen as dateable, right? Like there's market value where everyone wants a certain kind of person, right?
Yeah.
And some people are larger bodied, have disabilities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And for some, porn is the only way that they have access to sexuality. And I'm glad they have that. So it's really about figuring out what need is the porn meeting, and is there another healthier way to get that need met?
Right. You were bringing up some like Tiger Woods and some scandals there. We were talking about and going to sex addiction rehabs and how maybe that works to clear their path going forward. Like some people look at it as a way to kind of make themselves repent for what they're doing. And I'm talking about the public seeing that, not necessarily them. But what are your thoughts then on the women involved in that kind of scandal and the slut shaming that goes around with that?
The women that are the victim, or the women themselves?
The women that are involved in those kind of scandals with those
Hurts
men,
my heart.
what's the name of the guy who was Sandra Bullock's husband? I think had an issue, or even a Kevin Spacey, or and a Tiger.
Yeah, well, it's like
the women always get blamed, is my point, and the men get to go to sex rehab, which you're saying you don't believe exists, and then their record is kind of clear. But the woman is always the mistress, the whore. She's slutty. She has this cloud on her of being, very promiscuous and not worth being a wife, so to speak.
I see that in cheating as well, where sometimes if a woman's being cheated on, she directs the anger at the other woman versus at her husband who created the issue, right? And who should have the most responsibility to her. So that hurts my heart, right? And I think slut shaming is a really horrible thing, because if you want to talk about slut shaming very quickly, when we slut shame someone, all we're saying is, we're talking about ourselves, the person who's using the label. We're saying the sex you're having makes me uncomfortable. And so instead of just acknowledging that, I'm going to pathologize you as though you're the problem. But I feel bad. That's a commentary on media. Media love the target. And we're not going to go after Tiger because, like you said, he's struggling from a psychological issue. Well, let's call bullshit on that. Like, I put an article out there, I think it was the Daily Beast, where I was like, bullshit. He's an asshole. He's a narcissist. This guy's not a sex addict. Like, let's not put this on the women. Let's put this on him. Grow up.